Unforeseen results. 93. The point of no return. Politics.
I've said to audiences, I'm not some sweet innocent. I'm going to be 70 in a few weeks' time. I've kicked around in politics and diplomacy and multilateralism. I thought I understood the way the world works. I don't. I don't understand. I don't understand how people are expendable. I don't understand why the impulse to a peaceful and just society is not stronger than the impulse to a destructive and unjust society.
Unforeseen results. 93. The point of no return. Politics.
This is a crisis, and this is probably the first phase of global warming, and the refugees in the world are refugees around water, and we have to deal with this now. Now, let me tell you, we know how to deal with it. We know how to deal with it. We have to use every single drop of water twice. We have to conserve. We have to change our agricultural practices from industrial agriculture to sustainable agriculture. We need to buy more locally. This water mustn't be being used to travel all over the world to make money for a handful of great big companies. We need source protection. We need laws to enforce source protection. Martin Luther King said legislation may not change the heart, but it will restrain the heartless. We need laws to say that if you pollute water, you have caused a crime against the future, and it is not okay, because this water is the lifeblood of the planet, and we cannot do that.
Unforeseen results. 93. The point of no return. Politics.
People are smarter than we sometimes think they are.
Community.
And they're perfectly capable of making good judgments about complicated things, especially under the right conditions. Perhaps the problem with making technology an object of political judgment lies not in the limited capacities of the people, but in the nature of technological development itself.
Unforeseen results. 93. The point of no return.
Here's a juxtaposition to conjure with. Every single cow in the European Union is subsidized to the extent of $2 a day. And in Africa, 400 to 500 million people live on less than $1 a day. You tell me how that gets rationalized in any moral continuum.
Unforeseen results. 93. The point of no return. Politics.
And finally, we come to the whole question of aid, which has to be provided. Foreign aid, official development assistance as it's called, has to be provided in a sufficient quantity in order to overcome the burden of disease. The quite fascinating international and now Columbia University economist Jeffrey Sachs
published a report which was sponsored by the World Health Organization in January of 2003 called the Macroeconomic Commission on Health, in which he argued irrefutably and with enormous intellectual power that you cannot move to economic growth when countries have such a burden of disease, that you have to deal with the disease burden first before you can initiate the growth. And the way you deal with the disease burden is to have a sufficient flow of foreign aid to shore up your health and related sectors and overcome, in this case, the force of the HIV and AIDS pandemic. And last week, President Bush gave Tony Blair the back of his hand and said he simply would not increase aid as the British were asking. The Germans have said yes. The Italians have said yes. The French have said yes. The United Kingdom is doing it. Everybody is attempting to reach that target of 0.7% of gross national product, which was set by our own Lester Pearson 35 years ago. Everybody is going to reach that target and have set dates commensurate with the Millennium Development Goals, somewhere between 2012 and 2015. Even Japan, driven partly by the wish to have a seat on the Security Council, is going to reach that target. The only two countries that are not declared are the United States and Canada. That frankly makes me very uncomfortable. This is not a secret. I was saying to the Deputy Prime Minister McClellan that what has happened is that all the good things that Canada is doing in the field of international aid, and some of them are very good, are being totally eclipsed by our refusal to set out a timetable to meet the 0.7. Because you see, everybody expects that to be the centerpiece of the response in the eradication of world poverty and the dealing with these various diseases which are wreaking havoc on the developing world. And it's simply inexplicable. Even in the area of HIV and AIDS, the government of Canada has given $100 million to the World Health Organization to attempt to put 3 million people into treatment by the end of this year. We've doubled our contribution to the Global Fund on AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. We've given a significant amount of money to the search for a microbicide, which will allow women to protect themselves against infection once it is discovered without the partner even knowing. We've put a lot of money into the search for a vaccine. And we're the only country in the Western world with a piece of legislation which would allow us to manufacture drugs at generic costs to export to developing countries. In other words, we have a compendium of utterly noble and honorable interventions.